Hey, how's it going, faithful? Happy 4-9 day. It is April 9th, 2026. So it is 49ers Day. And also, we're celebrating, obviously, 80 years of the San Francisco 49ers. And so there's been plenty of stuff on social media about that. And I think Jerry Rice did a little clip about that. And obviously, celebrating 80 years. And he's obviously the most famous number 80 that we have here in the Bay Area. So happy 49ers Day. We're going to obviously talk about the draft. We obviously are 2 weeks away, literally 2 weeks away from the first night of the draft. And this is a time when, you're hearing a lot of different things and you're hearing a lot of different mock drafts and all these different things and who's going to be going in the first, not just the first, but the second, third, fourth rounds. Are there going to be guys that are going to be jumping from, say, the third or the second to the back end of the first? And so I see a lot of guys really teetering at this point on some of those picks, that guys that were in that second round range or third round and now are viewed more as back of the first round guys. And for a lot of reasons, right? Obviously, the combine had a lot to do with that. Guys' measurables, their traits, Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, all these different things that are now done, and they've all taken place, and they're all ways to assess these guys and try to predict the future. That's what all these 32 GMs want to do. Very hard to do, obviously, as we all know, but this is a really interesting time. And so I did do a full mock draft that I kind of just want to go over and review, because this is, to me, one of the fun things to do in this draft is really to do a trade back scenario. So this was a trade back, and I mean, to me, I posted about it on social media, but Trade Back Thursday basically is what today is about. And so, I traded back to get more picks, and then I traded back again and then try to get some picks as well for the future, some late rounders for 2027. But without further ado, I do have a little cheat sheet here that I have, just because I want to make sure that I get this right. And again, I will post these, and you'll be able to see it on the screen as well with me. But I do want to talk about that first pick. There's really just two edge rushers that I think the 49ers really have to get in this draft at 27, or to just trade back and still be able to get one of them. So I've got two guys. One is Zion Young, who was already gone when I did this latest mock, and the other guy is Malachi Lawrence. Now, Malachi Lawrence was somebody that I just saw on social media, other content creators posted about yesterday. And I had done another mock that I had Malachi in the day before. So I thought that was just perfect timing. And again, he's a guy that just kind of jumps off the page to me. And he's a guy that he's very explosive. He's got great burst, quick hands. And he's a guy that I think is going to fit in really well with what Raheem Morris wants to do and what he did a lot of in Atlanta last year. And that's accumulate a ton of sacks with a lot of guys that were quick and twitchy and had a lot of burst. And I do think the one thing that feels a little bit misreported is that he's not that great against the run. But I actually, when I watch the tape, I see him hitting gaps really, really well and dissecting where the runner is going to be and making a lot of stops in the run game as well. So I don't think that he's a guy that you can just put in passing situations, NASCAR package type of stuff. I think he's a 3-down guy or 4-down guy these days, and you'll still be okay. I mean, he's plenty big enough. It's not like he's 245. He's well over 250. 6'4", 6'5", big guy, big body, and a guy that's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of power, and much like Zion Young. Now Zion's even bigger. Zion's in that 6'5", 6'6", 265 plus category. But plenty of explosiveness. The thing, though, about Malachi is just really good at just slapping those hands down on the tackles and getting around the edge. And he bends a lot more. He's way more of a bending type of edge rusher than a guy like Zion, who just is just going to overpower you. And he's very, very strong. But Malachi's pretty strong, too. It's just that he goes about it with a multiplicity of moves that he can use to beat you. So I traded back with the Browns, and I traded to the 39th pick. Here are the details of what I had to give away. And again, this is already on Twitter. I posted about this, and so you can see all the details there. and I'll have it on the screen as well. But if it's hard to see, please go ahead and check those to get more details. But yeah, traded back to the 39th pick, and I also got their 70th pick and their 149th pick. So my goal was to find a way to get another pick between 58 and 127. So I mentioned that I just think there's such a huge gap between 58 and 127, and this is not the draft that you want to have a huge gap in. This is the kind of draft that you want to make sure that you get as many picks in the top 100 as possible. Last year I felt was that way as well, but especially this season when a lot of the guys that you're expecting to compete to play every day, play on the first team and to start are guys in the second, third, fourth round, especially second and third. So I wanted to get as many as I could. I did have to give away the 27th pick and the 2026 fourth rounder to get their 39th, their 70th, and then their 149th pick for the Browns. Now, in this scenario, they moved up, and I think they took KC Concepcion, which has been mocked to the 49ers a ton. But I did take a receiver now. I didn't wait too long. So I took Malachi Lawrence at 39, and then with my next pick, the 59th pick, which again, I did another trade. I traded back one spot from 58 to 59 to get extra picks. And so I traded with Houston, and I got extra picks there with them. Let's see, I also was able to get their 141st pick and a 7th rounder. Okay, and I gave up the 58th, a 5th, and a 2026 7th. Okay, because I had multiples there, and so I wanted to go ahead and do that and use that pick to just go back one and pick up another pick in the top 150 instead of the top 100, but still pick up another guy in the 5th. 49ers don't have third rounders. They don't have 5th rounders of the 6 original picks. So I just wanted to, again, try to stockpile more picks in rounds 2 through 5 if I could. And if I can get a 7th, that's great, or a future 7th, which is what I did. I ended up getting 2 future 7s in all this moving around and trading back. So with that 59th, not 58th pick, I took Alabama receiver Jeremy Bernard. Now, Jeremy Bernard is a guy that I've said this before, and I probably posted about it as well, but he's a guy that reminds me so much of kind of like a bigger, stronger Ayuk, faster as well. He's just a bigger dude, stronger dude, accelerates really well. And I just really like the way that he runs his routes and the way that he goes in and out of cuts. I think he's one of the best in this entire draft class at doing that. And so I just thought it would be really a miss to not add a wide receiver now, even though that room is now, obviously, we want to add more receiving depth and more receiving talent, but that room now is fairly full. But this is a guy that, you can use him in a lot of different ways. He's bigger and stronger, like I said, than like a BA. And I wouldn't say he's kind of like Debo-ish because he's more 6'1 plus, so he's taller, and he's about 210 pounds. So, but it's well distributed, and so he's not going to be doing a lot of running back type of gadget stuff, but he could do a lot of bubble stuff. He could do a lot of stuff underneath for you. So he can be a guy that comes in, and Kyle can get really creative with how he uses him so that he's not just sitting the entire year on the bench if everybody stays healthy, right? Which is what we hope. He's a guy you can use in different ways and continue to develop. And again, in the second round, I'm much more okay with trying to develop a really strong, talented receiver there than, say in the first round, you take a flyer on a guy, or whether it's an edge or any position really, where, you really want to have a guy that can either start or compete to start right away. So, in the first round. So that's who I went with. And then I decided, let's go to the trenches. We have to start attacking the trenches. And this guy was just sitting there. I don't know if he'll be there. He might be gone in the top 50. This is an offensive lineman, a guy who had a really good time at the Senior Bowl. And I know a lot of people loved covering this guy. And this was Iowa guard Jennings Dunker. And I joked about this earlier on YouTube. Him and Kittle are just going to have a hell of a time in the locker room with their hair game. So this guy's got a lot of personality. He's got the mullet, big dude, strong dude, great athlete. And that offensive line at Iowa was awarded the best offensive line in college football this past season. So, you know, they have multiple guys that will get drafted in the first 4 rounds, but this guy in particular stands out, and that's Jennings Dunker. And so I think he's a guy, we know the 49ers are looking for a left guard. He's a guy that can start and can start right away. Like I said, he's a guy that is very athletic. He's quick. He's got great footwork. I think that the power that he has in his hands, and again, the way that he drives guys off their spot and continues to drive, he's a really strong dude, both, you know, in run blocking and in pass blocking. And so I think that the 49ers would obviously have a big upgrade there than what they had a season ago, when they had kind of a rotation of guys with Ben Bartch and I'm blanking on the gentleman that we drafted out of UTSA, but we had him rotating in as well. And so it just felt like a revolving door at left guard. And it was something that definitely needed to get addressed. And you could see that the 49ers, Spencer Burford, thank you. It just came to me. But yeah, Spencer is a guy who we know he's a rotational guy, came in out of UTSA really as a left tackle, you know, and so as a swing tackle kind of guy, but because of his measurables, they moved him inside. But really, you know, again, and they have Robert Jones that they signed, and they have all these other guys that they've signed that could play that spot. I think they see Toth, I don't know how to say his name still, but Brendan Toth, I know that John Lynch intimated a bit in the meetings, in winter meetings, that he's more of like a center, backup center project for them, that how they view him, even though he's played guard and center with Philly. So again, these are all depth moves, but Jennings Dunker could come in even as a rookie and start right away. So he was my 70th pick of the draft. And then from 70 to 127, there was really not much I could do to gain more picks. I felt like I did as much as I could. But you know what? I decided to go to receiver again. This guy was sitting there. I really like his tape a lot. And I went to Ole Miss again. Now, I know we have Jordan Watkins, who out of Ole Miss, who we really liked, and hopefully he's going to play a lot this year. But this guy's got some explosiveness. 6'2", about 6'1", 6'2", bit on the light side, 192 to 195. I think he was 192 pounds at his pro day. So not the biggest dude in the world, but, you know, on tape actually looks plenty strong. Could get a little bit stronger. I mean, we say that about Ricky Pearsall all the time, and definitely is true. But De'Zhaun Stribling, and I hope I'm saying your name right, the first name, because you got a creative spelling to it. But Stribling, just a really good player. Talk about a guy that gets in and out of his cuts. He just gets in and out of his cuts and just at the snap. I feel like he wins a lot at the snap because his first couple steps are just really quick. Really great burst on this guy. He ran in the 4.3s, so he's got the deep threat ability. I need to do a little deeper dive to see if he's done a lot of punt return, kick return, but you could see a guy with that kind of speed and that kind of a physical profile being able to do that. And so there's things you could do that. You get this guy in the 4th round, you bring him in and you coach him up. So you got another receiver to compete in that room, and a guy that's got a lot of talent. And so if you drop one or two guys, or a few guys drop because of injury or whatever in camp, you got more depth that you didn't have last year, and more talent, and definitely more speed, because obviously Kyle and John talked a lot about adding speed. Here's your speed guy right here. So then at 133, you know, like I said, I'd taken edge, I'd taken receiver, I'd taken guard, and I took another receiver. I really want to address tight end, and it's a position group that the 49ers haven't necessarily ignored, but it's a position group that they've kind of gambled with, like guys like Cam Latu and Braden Willis in this kind of mid-round section, and sometimes in the 3rd round, but guys that really I felt like were really slow-footed and were more just blockers. Well, this dude is not just a slow-footed blocker. Now, he's an excellent blocker, and he was at the pro day, I believe, today, and that was local Stanford product tight end Sam Roush. And I've posted about him on Instagram before, but Sam Roush is a guy that he may not win in the 40 against a lot of tight ends, but he will beat you in that 10-yard split because he is got plenty of burst. He's got great hands, really good acceleration. That 10 to 20 yards, I think he's going to just make a lot of money that way in the right system. And the 49ers love to create space, 5 to 10 yards of space for their tight ends underneath, their running backs. Sam Roush can come in even in the 4th round. He's a great blocker, obviously really bright guy, Stanford guy. So we know that this guy is going to study up. He can pick up that playbook, at least in a way that makes him a very capable starter or, backup to Jake Tunges. And that way you have added depth there. And because we know George is going to come back at some point, but we don't know when. So adding talent, big body guy, 260 plus, 6'6", just a guy that has so much burst. I think he ran in the 1.6s in the 10-yard split. So I really like Sam Roush. I think that he's a great athlete. He may not be here, to be honest. Maybe some team jumps up and tries to take him in the back end of the 3rd round and he doesn't drop to the 4th. But he's been around this area a lot when I do these mocks, and I've been doing them for months now. And usually he's here still in that 120 to 140 range. So hopefully he's still there at 133. And then after that, at 138, I went with a tackle because I realized we have a guard, but we really didn't have a swing tackle. This guy, now he's a 6-year player in college, tons of experience, but this guy allowed, I think, less than 2% pressure rate this past season when I looked it up. Really great swing tackle, played right tackle and left tackle for Mizzou, and that's Keegan Trost. Really like this guy a lot. Now, I've heard different reports that they may kick him inside because he's more of a short arm guy. But other than that, his measurables are pretty damn good. He's really tall dude. I believe he's 6'4", 6'5", 315 plus. So he's a guy that I really like. The thing I like most about him that stood out to me when I watched his tape is great feet, quick feet, great anchor, and he goes from one block to then his help block extremely well. And I thought that stood out to me. And that's something that doesn't always stand out when you're watching offensive linemen in college is they're good with their initial block sometimes, but they don't help block as well. And this guy can just smoothly shift from whoever he's blocking to then help his teammate and continue his other blocking assignments. And he does it really well, both in run and pass. And like I said, he's versatile. He is the definition of versatility. He played right tackle. He played left tackle. He played several games at left tackle. I thought he did a great job. So again, I know obviously we've got the Trent Williams stuff going on. I'm not expecting this kid to come in and fill in like that, or even at a decent rate, because we've got, Vidarian Lowe and all these other guys that the Niners signed for that, for just in case of injury, in case of all these different things, holdouts and all that kind of stuff. And I fully expect Trent to be in, but I still want the 49ers to have this built-in, experienced young guy that can come in, and he's not going to need to be coached up very much. He's played a lot of games in college. So, you get this guy in there with our O-line coaches, and I think he's going to just do a really good job because he's played a lot of games. He has experience, and like you can see it when you watch his tape. He's got a lot of poise, and he's technically sound. He's not raw like a lot of the tackles you see in the 4th, 5th round that they're big athletic guys, but they come in with so much raw skill that you're going to have to wait 2 or 3 years to find out how good they can be. I don't think you need to wait that long on this guy, and he'll be able to give you coverage at left tackle or right tackle, which you do need. Then at that point, I realized, look, I didn't get my favorite free safety in this draft. Jalen Kilgore was gone already. It felt like the Dolphins were taking all my favorite guys prospects that I usually take in the 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round. It was insane. They kept taking them right before it was my pick. So at pick 139, I just went with the guy that I thought could create turnovers and was just a heat-seeking missile. And this guy was incredible. Really hard-hitting free safety out of Maryland, and that's Jalen Husky. It's a guy that could go in the 5th, 6th round. At 139, I didn't have too many picks left. I only had 2 more picks after that. So I decided this was a good time to jump up. Not really jump up, but to take this guy, even if I could take him a little later at free safety, which is to me a very valuable and premium spot in your defense, especially when you have some needs there, which I believe we do. Even if you feel more comfortable than I do with the Jair Brown, for example, and some of the other guys we have there, I think you got to add more talent. I think you got to add guys that can pick the ball off. This guy had, I think, 4 interceptions for Maryland this past season and a total of 11 in his career, in his college career. So again, I care about turnovers. I care about forced fumbles. I care about, interceptions, forced fumbles, turnovers, however you get them. And this kid created those turnovers, and he is a hard hitter. He was hitting guys so hard sometimes he'd lay himself out. That's how hard he hits. And but he was still fairly durable. I mean, he played a lot of games too. So, this guy is a really tough kid. Could put a little more weight on. Another one of those guys that probably about 190 to 195, 6'1", 6'1 and a half. So the height's just is fine, but it was, I think, putting on a little more good weight. And again, getting in an NFL weight room and getting with our coaches and getting with our guys, I don't think that'll be too much of a problem, especially with how hard this guy plays and how hard he hits. And he just has a nose for the ball. I mean, I saw him make a bunch of diving interceptions, reads plays really well, reads the quarterback, and you could tell he studies. He'll come off his guy and he will just read their eyes, and he closes in. His 5 to 10 yard split, I don't have the time on me, but I know was really good because on tape, it looks quick as hell. So I really like this guy, Jalen Husky, free safety out of Maryland with the 139th pick. After that, hey, I realized, Kyle loves his running backs. We haven't taken a running back yet. So that's when I went with a guy that I like a lot, 5'9", 200 plus pounds, but really quick. Reminds me a little bit of Frank, especially the, terms of the 5'9", 200. Now, Frank Gore was 5'9", 220, when he was playing in his prime. But still, this guy, Robert Henry Jr. out of UTSA, has some really nice burst. I think he's probably faster, from the line of scrimmage to 10 yards from the line or 20 yards from the line than he will be in the 40-yard dash. But again, at running back, kind of like quarterback, I don't care about the 40 as much. I care about your first 5 to 10 yards. And this guy has really good burst. He reads the hole extremely well. He follows his blockers really well. And then he does have that good acceleration. And that's something that I look for with running backs a lot. He's like some guys just hit a gear and they just stop. But when they get to that gear, they don't get there that fast. This kid gets there, and he gets there in a hurry. And then lastly, I went edge again. And I think part of that was, and by the way, I'm posting this after I know the 49ers just signed Cam Sample. I did this before that signing. But regardless, I still think, Sample has been a good vet, and he's being brought in to be a vet, probably to make the team, but I don't necessarily think he has to. And so I decided to get this guy who I really like, and I posted about recently in another video that I did, the last one about underrated prospects, and that was Mason Reiger. Mason Reiger, the edge, who played really well at the Shrine Bowl, edge out of Wisconsin. I just really like this guy's strength and his burst as well. I think he's super underrated. I do think he could be a steal. I think this is a guy that is better than his college tape. And when you watch this guy, not just in a vacuum, but you watch him in drills and you watch him and how he uses his hands, how he uses leverage, and then how quick he is, I think this guy comes around the edge. Again, a guy that's not going to wow anybody in a 40 or even a 20-yard race, but in 5 to 10 yards from the line of scrimmage, he's really bursty, quick dude. And he's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of strength, good in the run game. But this is a guy that I think can develop into a really good pass rusher as well. So Mason Reiger, you're the final pick at 149. And then, like I said, after that, I was able to just have 2 7th rounders that I got from New England and Washington in all the trade up, trade down scenarios that I ended up doing. And so was able to get some future picks as well. Now some late rounders, but was able to get that. And hopefully that was kind of a good review and summary of this. And I can't wait till 2 weeks from now. We get to actually find out what the 49ers will do at 27. Do they keep it? Do they move down? Do they move up? A lot hasn't been talked about very much. And I hope to talk about that in future episodes as we lead up to the draft. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Faithful. And take care, everybody. Happy 4-9 once again.